Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of OutBüro Voices, where we have conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders from around the world. And today we are so thrilled to be chatting with Todd Evans of Rivendell Media. And so that I don't chop it up, I'm going to let him explain it. But in a brief, it is, if not the oldest, it is the one of the longest running media focused agencies in the US, if not the world. Todd, give us a little bit of information and welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks, Dennis. Thank you for having me. Rivendell, so it's Rivendell, so it's our 41st year. We started in 1979, and we bill ourselves as an LGBTQ media rep firm. So to make it simple for you, we're not an agency. We mostly work with ad agencies.
Okay.
What makes us unique, media rep firms aren't unique, but what makes us unique is that our longevity in business and that we only represent specifically targeted LGBTQ media properties. So in the universe of LGBT media in the United States and Canada, we represent about 95% of all print and digital properties that are available to advertise on. The main focus of our business, it's changed over the years from our founding, which it's kind of an interesting story of itself. The owner, Joe DeSabato, was a good friend of mine, and he was a music promoter, and he had a company in the early 70s called Rivendell Music Marketing. And he achieved some fame and success. He represented Jefferson Airplane, and then his last big gig was representing Elton John when he broke into the United States.
Wow.
And being an out gay man in New York City, he flew around with Elton John and placed ads in the gay publications to attract people to his concerts, and saw the viability of that market at that time, which, going back in time, this is the, now it's after 75. And when that tour was over, he changed the name, dropped the word music, and changed it to Rivendell Marketing, and started to rep LGBT media properties. Of course, it was gay media at that time. And I think one great thing about this company is we have all the records from the beginning. And
nice.
Even the first ads we placed, I mean, it was a real record keeper. In fact, one of my favorite things to do whenever I have time is go look in an old folder, because he kept notes on all the publishers, like who he liked, who wasn't good. And I still deal with some of these people. And I just think it's so funny. I'm like, oh my God, he was spot on.
Wow.
A man ahead of his time. When I took over, Joe, unfortunately in 92 had an asthma attack and died young. And his partner, long-term partner, Michael Gravatt, took over the company, who was a friend of mine. And I had been wanting to join Joe for a long time. And so, of course, I waited the appropriate amount of time. And eventually Michael said, this is not my thing. I'm not good at this. He was just becoming a teacher. And he was going to sell the company. And I said, stop there. Let me look at it. And I ultimately bought the company from him in 1994. I ultimately changed the name again a little bit. Our name was in so long in use, we wanted to keep the name, but Joe became Rivendell Marketing because he had to do a little bit of everything at that time, because he was creating, helping to find a marketplace and then creating it for advertisers as it went on. I realized that our focus was just media, and that most of our clients and the best clients would be able to service ad agencies. So I changed our name to Rivendell Media, just so that ad agencies knew we were focused specifically on media, not competition with them. And then I did all my marketing, really not to the consumer, directly B2B to ad agencies, telling them that we make it simple, easy, and profitable for them to recommend and utilize LGBT media. And that's important only in the sense that what I realized in the 90s, as the gay market was coming sort of into its own, that big ad agencies, it's not that they didn't want to recommend it, it is that it was too much work and not profitable for them, because most gay media is local. So we were able to take, just to show them how easy it really is to show them the whole universe, whether we represent it or not, and really empower them to make their own choices still, but that instead of making one simple buy in one publication, because we have no strong national media, we would show them just to make how easy it was to place in 25 or 35 or 50 publications the same way. And that
Okay.
really became our hallmark in business, because once agencies realize that we do most of what I would call the grunt work for them, and they still can make all the executive decisions, we really never lost a customer from that point on. Once someone was able to use us, they would know, campaigns came and went, but I find most of our clients look for LGBT media projects so that they can use us, because it's simple to do and it's profitable for them.
Oh, okay.
I hope I know I
Very,
went on there.
no, great explanation, because I've heard of you for a while, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what you guys did and how you played in the mix. And so I love that thorough explanation. And I think a lot of our listeners are going to be, have not, the vast majority of people have not heard of you unless you're in the industry. And so they're going to go, wow, I didn't even know that existed. Right.
Yeah,
And
it is. It is interesting, and just to make it simple for we've talked before, so you know a little bit more. I'm just a glorified ad rep. This whole company is just a glorified ad rep. So our contract is with the media property, and it basically just says, we will represent you to national advertisers as long as you can guarantee to us we're quoting the lowest available rate and that we are paid by you. So for an ad agency or a client, it's really a no-brainer, because it's the exact same cost whether you come to me or let's say you go to the Bay Area Reporter in San Francisco. If you were to do that, you would still get your ad. It would just, we call it coming through the back door. It would come through the back door to us and we would just service it. You might not even know we exist. And you're right, most LGBT consumers don't know we exist. You really do have to be in the business or happen to see our name in the masthead of a gay publication under national advertising.
huh. Just from a business perspective, I always, kind of like to get into a little bit of the whys. I mean, you got into the whys and the how, but you took over this business and you were wanting to get into it. So what about this business, kind of makes you get up every day? It's been around for a while and you've been doing this for a little over a decade yourself. So what's the drive? What's the motivator for you to, keep the lights on and getting up every day and going into work and facing another day from, for as an entrepreneur and as a person? It's a lot of work and sometimes a lonely road.
Well, lonely during this pandemic, that's for sure. There's no doubt of that. But no, you know what? I'll tell you, it's even when I hire people here, I have a passion, and it's about a cause of equality, quite frankly. What I tell all my employees when they start here, I say, look, the better job you do, the more money you make. The more money you make, that money goes directly to LGBT media in the United States, and that's going to help them cover our issues and help with equal rights for LGBT people, and that's going to help with equal rights for everybody. And there really is no downside. I always say, you do a sloppy job or a schlocky job, then it's a schlocky ripple that goes across the country. And from a publication standpoint, since what's unique about the LGBT market is most of our media is local. We've never had a national magazine of 1 million circ, right? And that's just because of discrimination, because of being afraid to be on national subscriber lists, going back in the day, even today, right? And I just got my Out magazine the other day to my home, and it's back in a covered envelope. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, it's 2020.
Really?
And they still have to cover the magazine to be delivered. And I'm sure they don't want to because it's an additional expense. It's because, I'm in my own bubble outside of New York City. But when you see and read every gay publication across the country, you really do realize, oh my God, how much discrimination people really do face, and how important that communication is with a greater community, especially when you're isolated. And then, I'm even seeing it myself today. Here I read every gay publication, but I'm very isolated right now because of the pandemic. I'm, looking for information, and I can really just see how, oh my God, this is great. I'm getting something to my home versus something that I'm forgetting to bring home from the office. It just happened the other day. I'm like, oh, I was supposed to read this, but fortunately it happened to come to my home. So it's a lifeline to our community. And the local in nature is just how our rights evolved, city by city, state by state. And even as here we are in the 90s, the 2000s, and marriage equality, but New York got marriage equality, New Jersey didn't have it. I couldn't read my New York publication. I had to get a New Jersey publication to sort of see, like, yeah, do I need a domestic partnership? What do I have to protect myself? Because it was so unique. And it's still that way today in the sense of from a consumer standpoint. I always say most gay media, it's all about what's going on Friday night. What's going on Friday, even with the pandemic, what's going on Friday night? Is there something I can zoom into tonight, or something that I'm going to have community with? It's harder. The education comes in with the agencies where, the African-American community and the Hispanic community, they have TV networks, right? They have Telemundo, they have BET TV. It's easier to reach large numbers quickly. In LGBT, you just can't do that unless you really utilize a network of local publications. So, even when I tell other LGBTs, they think Out Magazine has 1 million, right? They don't realize that it's 200,000 or around there anyway. And, that's very small for national media buys. It's just very small overall. But together, all added up together, it adds up to where you can really reach a significant part of the community. And what I would tell you is who reads gay media? I have some friends that are like, I don't read gay media. I just read the New York Times. Like, I'm super informed. And what I always say is, well, my advertisers or the people coming to me, they don't really care about you. They're going to get you through the mainstream media. They're looking for people that are concerned about the community, that do care who's reaching out to them, that are going to make a buying decision based on that, right? So am I going to go to TD Bank or Wells Fargo or US Bank or some other bank? Who's asking for my business? And in fact, that's what I say to every client. Like, it starts with asking for your business. And then the consumer will start to figure things out. So,
right.
Roundabout way.
Yes, and if it weren't for those advertisers, those media companies wouldn't be around. So.
No. Yes, I mean, absolutely.
And so that's kind of sad that yes, in some of our bubbles in New York City and Fort Lauderdale and San Francisco, one might feel that, oh, I'm an evolved gay. I don't watch or subscribe to gay publications. I'm so mainstream. Well, good for you, darling. But one, you're not getting the gays view perspective. So in one way, you might think you're evolved, but you also might be out of touch. But you're also then, by not viewing, as you are clearly articulating, and I'm regurgitating in my words, is you're also then not supporting those publications and not supporting the community, and reducing the ability of those media companies to attract the advertisers and stay in business, because there's been numerous, well-respected media companies that have gone out of business. So kind of would like to transition for a moment and talk about that. You obviously have been at the center of seeing that happen, based on what media companies you're able to represent and not represent. And, this is not about being negative at all towards any particular media company that existed yesterday and no longer here, or exists today, and so forth. So, but would love kind of your take on that, because I do think, based on what we just talked about and how I restated, I think it's really important for people to kind of get your inside understanding and inside look on how important it is for them to look at the, to look at, to subscribe to, and so forth, the gay media. So if you could maybe give us a little bit of chat about that.
Sure. So yes, it really is important to support them, because they are, this country it's a strange country. The advertising model is, for even in mainstream media, most publications lose money for their actual subscribers. So Out, Advocate, any national gay magazine, they lose money when you subscribe to them. But what they're trying to do is increase their circulation enough as a paid circulation so that the advertiser sees the value in it and will actually buy ads. So it's, to me, really, most other countries, it's not that way. Most other countries, the subscription rate supports the publication and the advertising is the gravy. It's just the opposite in this country. I think it's a mistake. I always say, if you have a demand, my favorite mainstream magazine is Vanity Fair, right? And if they charged double because they needed to, and I wanted that non-biased information, I would pay it, right? They might lose some, but I see that value in it. But in gay media, they can't do that really, either for a whole bunch of financial reasons. It's complicated, expensive to actually maintain all those things, and mailing and so forth. So they're depending on their advertising dollars to support them. Now, we've been really lucky over the years. There have been, big changes, like the biggest growth, an interesting fact, the biggest growth in gay media was when phone sex company, when the deregulation of the telephone industry came in the 80s and deregulated the phone and created all these adult 1-800 numbers. And in fact, Rivendell's first $1 million account was an adult 800 number that spent $1 million in gay media. And they would be like all those adult natured ads in the back of gay publications. By straight companies advertising gay products. It was kind of interesting, but it really supported it and fueled their growth. And then when that industry changed, more mainstream companies came in to help fuel their growth. That's when the spirits industry really started supporting, Absolute being the first big one, but others soon came in. And in my business, a category breaker is always a big thing, because if you get one financial company, then you can go to another and say, hey, such and such is here, maybe you should be here. And it makes them think differently in a competitive way.
Yeah.
Less about the media and more about business. And when anything's focused on business and making money, it usually moves forward. And that's been the same for us now. This latest pandemic has been particularly hard because the spirits industry was hit really hard. The entertainment industry was hit really hard. The arts industry was hit. And these are all the main categories in gay media or LGBT media right now. So my advice to our publications are do whatever it takes to stay in business till we get to the other side of this. And it would be the same advice I would give a mainstream publication, because your other local free publications, especially the alternative press, has been even hit harder than gay media, have closed or gone on hiatus. And I say, if that's what you need to do to be there on the other side of this, do it. We are lucky in that a big category in LGBT media is the pharmaceutical industry with HIV drugs. They are really helping support gay media in this time. And I would say almost all of them have stepped up and not stepped away when they could, knowing how important their advertising dollars actually are. So I say bravo to Gilead, bravo to Bristol Myers Squibb, Merck, and those that have really continued with a presence to help out media now. And then, of course, now is the state by state, things are opening. Some of our publications are doing much better than others. Right now, New York is much better than it was as we were open, but Florida's still having a tough time. Chicago's having a really tough time. The West Coast is having a really tough time with multiple catastrophes going on.
So just kind of getting kind of unpacking that for just a
Sure.
moment, or analyzing that for a moment.
Yeah.
You said that, a lot of, the vast majority is local. And so that it's all about what's happening Friday night. So, so there is, in a situation like this, in a pandemic, I guess I could see where that would cause lower circulation, because people aren't going out Friday night. So I know you're not in the business necessarily of, advising, but you are, in a way, I'm sure.
Sure.
Um, so do you think, are there any publications that you're aware of that maybe have taken this and maybe said, OMG, we actually maybe need to change our format a bit and have, interesting content beyond what's just happening on Friday night, with the ads of the drag queens and the go-go boys, right? I mean, maybe we need to step it up and mature to become something more interesting, and for people to want to read. Does that make sense, or
No,
what I'm trying
well,
to get to?
yes, yes. So the evolution of gay media, right, is it used to be there was just one publication per market, right? That started way back when, and then other entrepreneurs would say, "Oh my God, that's great! We have the Washington Blade. Let's say it really covers our hard news, and I love it, and it's great. But there's really nothing covering the nightlife scene." So cities, as they grew, their gay media grew, they grew different types of gay media to fit different niches. So pretty much every major city has a news oriented newspaper type publication. It might be a magazine, mostly it's a tabloid newspaper, but then they usually have two or three other entertainment publications. So like in San Francisco, has two newspapers and one small guide-sized publication called Gloss, which really covers that bar scene. So what we've seen in this pandemic is a lot of those bar scene publications, like you said, with the Go-Go Boys, the Hot Guys, or what's going on Friday night. They've cut back their frequency, right? So instead of being weekly, they've gone to bi-weekly, sometimes to monthly, sometimes not at all until things are better. We have a few that are on hiatus because of that. But the way most have dealt with it is to just drastically cut back their page count. So it was not unusual to see a publication with 50, 60, 70 pages even in this office. Now, I would say they're probably 50, 30, 20 pages. I've even seen some 12 pages, but they're focused on news, and they still want to get that news out for the community, like the census and how important it is to be counted, and what's going on with the Supreme Court from the gay perspective.
Okay.
And a lot have prepared for this. Don't forget, we've been through a lot of crisis in this industry before. AIDS being the first big one that really disrupted distribution, and advertisers pulled back. People forget the discrimination that reared its ugly head when AIDS came out. So here was this boom in gay media, all these things moving forward, spirits companies coming in, people embracing the media. AIDS came out, and trust me, the phone stopped ringing. People became much less interested. They were worried. And that's just 101 advertising. If there's a controversy of any kind, stop, wait, and see, right? It's what I would advise to people too sometimes, right? Let's see what happens here, and then take it from there. We were lucky that in the AIDS crisis, just like today, some big companies stepped up, like Absolute, totally increased their ad placements, buying not just 1 year of covers, but 2 years of covers. And that kept some publications publishing, quite frankly.
Wow.
And that sort of got us through that. And I think this is the same, we're seeing the same scenario. After 9/11, 9/11 had a across the board a media cutback to the point where I think, 9/11 happened in the morning. By that afternoon, our phone did not stop ringing for canceling ads for 3 days. Every time I'd come in, you just hear that phone ringing, and they were trying to make sure they could cancel their ads. At least with this crisis, we didn't see that. What happened in this crisis is most people just let things ride that were already planned. And then most people that were starting new things took the wait and see. And they're all waiting in the wings, I would say, right now to when we have some positive news, to when, especially the travel industry, when we can really start trying to get back to normal. Even this election to me is a big holdup right now. A real wait and see attitude. So I'm looking forward to that and taking a deep breath after it's over.
Hopefully.
And think about it in this way, right, with this election, how important gay media is right now. You touched on one thing that really always gets me. Media by and for our community, gay owned and operated media is its own universe. Getting gay information from the New York Times is very different, even from a gay reporter. The lens of the publisher comes through that, and money talks, right? And the way mainstream media gets covered or issues don't get covered is by media, if there's the interest in the money, for advertisers. And the truth is, national, they don't care that much. They care in gay media because that's why they're there. They're there to support and reach it. And I don't think any of our issues would be covered as well as the Washington Blade or the BAR or Gay City News is doing right now on especially the down ballot candidates that I wouldn't even know about if they're anti-gay or not without that coverage. So it's more important than ever. They need our help more than ever right now. And back to another thing, though, that you said about supporting them, as I say, who does really read? I missed this point. Who really reads gay media? People like me that are really seeking that information, the people newly gay out where everything gay is new to them, right? So what you're really reaching there is the super tipping point people, the super influencers, the people like you, let's say, who read something that is now you're staying at your sister's, you're gonna tell your sister about it, right? Your sister may now send that ripple to her universe on like, hey, don't go to that company. They're actively discriminating against us. Or they're supporting these Trumpsters, and that's how that information and that ripple gets started. And, I'm jazzed every day when I get here because if I can get another campaign, I know the difference that's going to make to gay media on the other end of that ripple, and how far that's really going to carry it out. Remember this: most gay media, no one's in gay media, just like teachers, right? No one becomes a teacher to make millions of dollars, right? They get into gay media because of the cause and because they're passionate about it and they care about it. And you can look at gay media, especially when you're seeing it all, you can see just by looking at it who's passionate behind it, who really cares, or who it's just a business for too. There's all types in this field. And the ones that do it right, they're going to be here on the other side of it. My prediction is, if the election goes the right way, that LGBT media will be as strong as ever on the other side of this. Because I think one thing that Trumpism has done has caused less people to be interested in diversity or less focus on that. And
I just posted in the group on LinkedIn and again on this site. An LGBT summit was canceled. That was scheduled for it's today I have my glasses on, the 16th or whatever of October. So anywho, this LGBT and summit of federal workers was going to have between 500 to 600 people attend. It was going to be held virtually, and they were actually told to indefinitely put it on pause. Because of the Trump administration's no diversity, that diversity is anti-American, right? It's like, how effing cray is that?
It's outrageous. It's just outrageous that what this, One thing that it's doing, I'm a big believer, I'm a big person of faith, and I really believe that everything happens for a reason. And if we didn't have this Trumpism, we might have really fallen into complacency in our rights. Like, um, you know, people think we got marriage equality and that discrimination was over. And it's like, you know, I know plenty of people reading gay media. It's like, oh, congratulations, you got married. Oh, I'm sorry, you lost your job. Also, they found out you were gay. It's just outrageous. And we live in that topsy-turvy world where, you know, it's about what you trust, right? And with this distrust in media, at least me as an LGBT person, I know I can trust LGBT media. I know I'm going to get at least the straight scoop from the LGBT perspective. And that's what I'm looking for right now. And I think, you know, most people are looking for that, whatever group you're in. If you're African American, I mean, I imagine African American media is more important than ever. Knowing what's going on within their own community, and especially locally. Things are so different locally here. You know, when you see across the country, it really is amazing the difference, even in content. So you talked about go-go boys and drag queens and stuff. Like, you know, for a long time here, publications, like ads that would fly here in New York, LA, San Francisco, I'd send them to like Texas publications, and they'd be like, I'm sorry, we can't print this.
Really?
Like, what do you mean you can't print that? Like, and they would be like, oh, it violates our something clause, you know, and we can't show anyone's butt. Or, I mean, it was ridiculous when there would be the alternative press. And I would even say this today that a lot of the alternative press is way more risque than gay media ever was even. It's just state by state, different standards. And, gay media's had to learn to roll with them.
Right. Well, I could see where people of, you know, we'll just call them evangelical right-wing political players would scrutinize the LGBT media more than the heterosexual alternative media.
I'll tell you a little secret in the 90s. So when a lot of companies were coming into the market, they would be like, I mean, they can tell us anything, and we always have non-disclosures with them, and no question's too stupid, but they'd say, we want to pursue this market, but we don't want everybody else to know, right? And so we would say, like, well, you can run in local gay media, but maybe you should start there and leave out national gay media. And that was really just because a lot of right-wing groups would monitor Out and Advocate and to see who's advertising to try and start trouble, let's say. Where a company like a national beer company could be in every gay publication except the nationals, and no one would even know it except the LGBT community.
Really?
And, yeah, it's really interesting in that way. In fact, we would often get quoted in the advertising column in the New York Times or something, and we love that because that would always really stir advertising interest in the market. But quite a few times I would quote about a campaign we were doing, and then I would get the call, and we'd see it on our caller ID, be like, oh no, and they'd say, could you please not mention us next time? One was a big beer company, and they were a great customer for years, but every time they got mentioned in the national press, they got really, it never turned into anything, but you know, one letter, you'd be amazed what a letter can do to the right people and communications at a company. And you know, so we want to avoid that. We want everyone to have a positive experience. And today it's better and better. And we've never really don't see that anymore. So things are moving in the right direction.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That was again, the 90s.
90s. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. 94, 95, 96. They were good and bad. You know, we had this flux of gay agencies starting and this real interest, but there was still a lot of scaredy cats, I would say.
Yes. Well, and you know, it's interesting too, because there's kind of a parallel when it comes to, you know, the employment rights, you know, like you mentioned you know, we have gay marriage, so you're all good. It's
Yeah.
like, are you kidding me? No. And it's also too, as I've kind of have been in what I do, I've heard companies and people say, oh, well, the U.S. Supreme Court, said it's illegal to discriminate, so you're all good, right? It's like, no, let me remind you, I always use this example is, any company over, X number of employees has sexual harassment policies because sexual harassment has been illegal at the federal and state levels in the United States since 1978. It's 40 years, right? And every company of over a certain size have where you have to sign off. Yes, it's a bad person if you do sexual harassment, and you have to re-up it every year electronically or in writing and go through training, and they put all this effort into it, but it still happens. And oh yeah, even the accusations all the way up to the person in the White House. So it's obviously just having laws and even all those efforts every single year on that topic, it still happens today. So I like to remind companies whenever I'm talking to them is like, you have this, and I tell them like, look, you're a company of 100,000, right? You don't have to answer this question, but in your brain, answer it. How many times does sexual harassment come up in your workplace that you're aware of? And statistics show that you only get informed of about 20%. So therefore, lay that analogy onto LGBT rights and discrimination and harassment, and the same will be true. So there's a lot of work there to be made, and that's partly getting back to the media, why I think it's so important to have a strong presence in the media. And for those listening out there, I'd like to encourage all of you to join OutBüro at outburo.com. It's where you belong. It's for everyone. It is a social media platform, but it's also where you are able to rate and review your employer. But oh, by the way, it's a bit of a mashup. I like to tell people it's like Glassdoor.com and LinkedIn met at a pool party, hooked up, and had a gay baby. And if you live in any of the hubs or wherever, those analogies. But there's also a bit like media, or almost like Huffington Post. At least it's what I'm striving to be. And that's where everyone has the ability to provide articles. So if you would like to write about your business, self-promotion, you'd like to write about your industry, you'd even like to shoot videos and put them within the article, that would be great. So for everyone out there, you don't have to be a professional journalist. I'm not a trained journalist, and I have 170 articles out on it. I like the term, be the change you want to see. And it's not a negative, but it's an observation, and I hope they don't try to fill it like I'm trying to. And that is that the vast majority of the LGBT media, as you stated, is the what's happening Friday night. It's mostly lifestyle, entertainment, kind of a focus, and and those that do have some business focus, it's typically very, very small. And so that's where OutBüro is trying to be different, and focusing on the professional side of life, because that has been mostly not at all focused on, and the business side of life. So for all of you entrepreneurs out there, would love your stories. If you need ideas, contact me, and so forth.
Let me just I read every gay publication in America and Canada and around the world. And just to
Wow.
tell your listeners, there is nothing like your site. There really is nothing business oriented amongst LGBTs where you can really share. And so I highly encourage everybody to get involved in it, especially if you're business minded. Business is what has moved our market forward, right? It never was. I laugh when people say, oh, it's all these companies embracing diversity. I said, no, it's all these companies embracing the almighty dollar. Once the demographics came out of double income, no kids, mostly male in urban areas, they're like, dollar signs, and that's what changed it. And then it's been those people like you or people on your site, other business people that I call the champions, in those companies that can also let other people help other people by letting other people know on your site if it's a good employer or if it's not. We need to really depend upon our own community and ourselves to move ourselves forward. And so bravo to you for doing it, because I know it took a while to get there just to do that.
Yes.
And it's all about community, and our community together is what's going to get us out of this pandemic ourselves. Like, how are we going to socialize in the future and make those connections? So it's really, my hat's off to you, and I encourage really everyone to do that, because there's nothing like it.
Oh, well, I so much appreciate you, your comments and your affirmations very much. And, it's also interesting too, because, people, I love to write about studies. So, one of my Google alerts that I get every single day is if it has the word LGBT and study, I get it and I read it. And so, and I'm a little behind right now, but I love writing about studies because, they're done by universities, they're done by, major institutions, respected institutions. And then you see studies that have been done time and time again, such as, the economic benefit. Studies after studies have shown, books have come out by, doctorates in finance and economics, that when employers of any size focus on diversity and inclusion, it literally creates financial benefit for them because everyone is performing better, working more efficiently, more creative ideas happen. And so it's a benefit to the business owner and the investors. So at any rate, so I love to then write about a study and then follow on articles. I then always cite that article, right? So it's also a great way to create cross-linking and create your pillar of content, your evergreen content. But that thing of, oh, the LGBT community is dual income, no kids, super wealthy, that really, based on the studies, isn't necessarily true.
No, well,
I think it's a fallacy, and that it actually, I think, kind of hinders us in a way, because study after study shows that one, people, when they are when they do show or have an indication that they're gay, let me say, when they are perceived to be gay, they're actually less likely to be hired. They are 3 times or 30% more likely to make 30% less in pay. And so what happens is at least, hopefully that'll change. But what was happening is that as the hiring managers would go, oh, well, that's a gay guy. And then they would basically, in their brain, not that this is right, please don't hate on me for saying this, but they would go, so they would basically pay them as if they were a female, thinking like, okay, well, it's a gay man. Well, he doesn't have a wife and 3 children at home, so therefore we can pay him less.
No, it's so true.
Does that make sense?
Well, it's so true. We call it the myth of gay affluence. But It's
Thank
all
you.
based in truth, and I'll tell you where that all comes from. So in the 80s, the previous owner of this company got the top, I think it was 8 at the time, the top 8 gay publications to get together to get the original demographic surveys that have caused this myth of gay affluence. And what happened was he was having success with advertisers, and they would say, "Hey, Joe, I believe you, double income, no kids." But the advertising business is all about covering your ass, right? So you have to make a media plan, and you got to hope that it works. And if it works, fine. But if it doesn't work, they're going to ask you why you did that, and you're going to have to cover your ass onto why you did it. So these top 8 publications, which are still in business today, it was the Bay Area Reporter, the Washington Blade, at the time the New York Native, the Dallas Voice, the Houston Voice, the Weekly News in Florida. And those readership studies, they were done by the most prestigious and best surveyor at their time, which was Simmons Market Research. And they came out with these glowing demographics of the double income, no kids, mostly male, gay audience. But what happened with them is gay media was so desperate for its own demographics that every gay publication took them as their own and used them to promote themselves, which really wasn't true. It's just like if you have a demographic study of Time magazine's readers and then say, well, all Americans are this. It never, it's obviously not true. All Americans aren't as educated as a Time magazine reader.
Right.
Same with the original surveys of the gay media. They were only, and this company only ever represented them as exactly what they were, the readers of top gay publications in top US cities. And keep in mind now, mostly closeted, right?
Right.
Mostly white men in major US cities. Because they were closeted, they didn't have that glass ceiling. Mostly double income, no kids. Gay families were unheard of at that time, right? To really start. And so they're still true. And even today, when community marketing does current surveys of those same publications, their demographics do come out better. But the average gay person is not affluent, is under the average American. But the real difference, Dennis, and still the reason that companies do it, they don't really care about that at all. They're just trying to reach people with more discretionary income. So it doesn't matter if you work at Starbucks or you are a waiter, but if you're a gay person, you are much less likely to have a family, much less likely to have dependents. And so no matter what income level you are, you have a greater sense of discretionary income. So that you want to get that $100 pair of sneakers, you can get it even if you work at the bottom of the rail too, because you're not worried about your kids. Now, as we get more acceptance and more families and more things, that will naturally change. But it's still a small percentage. Even today, gay families, we hear a lot about them, and we hear just like we hear tons about the transgender community, and it's this great part of it. It's just a sub-segment of the community at large. And remember, advertisers really aren't trying to reach all gay people, right? I think I told you this at one of those stories. I said I was doing a thing for Nike. It was like an advertising breakfast. And they're like, why are you here? And they're like, we're here to learn about the LGBT community. And I said, okay, great. You want to advertise to all of them? They're like, yeah, great. I said, okay, so you want to reach poor LGBT people, right? And they're like, there's poor LGBT people? I'm like, of course there are. And really, you don't want to reach everybody. You just want to reach either the influencers in that market or the ones that can afford your product. And it's the same for every advertiser. You want to reach that certain sweet spot for you. And so that's where it is today. But an interesting, back to that original survey, that was actually used against us for our own equal rights in the Supreme Court. It was actually cited. And, I wanted to give that person a dunce cap for I can't forget the justice's name, but for being so ignorant as to not even to cite a survey that doesn't even apply and then use it to actually affect my equal rights, And then basically what they were saying was, gay people aren't discriminated against because they have money, as if that means anything.
Right. Wow. Well, I'm glad we brought that up because that was such a great clarity and a great education for myself. So I'm sure that others will really get something about that. And so what is awesome is you have your finger and pulse on practically every LGBT media entity in the US, and of course very much throughout the world. And so as agencies and or companies are coming to you, you're able to help them really dial in and target the LGBT community exactly where they want to be. Awesome.
That's the goal.
That is
That's
the goal.
And we do, I do say, even if we don't represent a property, like we don't represent Pride Media, Advocate, and now because they have their own sales team, it's still my job to know what their reach is, what their frequency is, how effective they are, because we really only care about a successful campaign. So if it doesn't go in our 95%, so what? If the advertiser has a successful experience and works for them, it's going to ripple out and expand. So it really is
well, absolutely. And of course, like any good consultant, you want your customer, your client, the advertiser, to be successful. So then they come back and do it again and expand. So totally get that. Well, Todd, it has been an absolute delight and pleasure chatting with you today and learning so much more and getting more in depth as to Rivendell, but also the LGBT media and the LGBT community. You have a very unique perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's really my pleasure.
Awesome.
I look forward to seeing some of your people on your site.
Well, we'll try to make that happen here real soon. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation with Todd Evans of Rivendell Media. Be sure that while here, you click the subscribe below if you are still watching this on YouTube, or if listening on the over 14 podcasting apps from Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and about 10 others. Be sure to hit that follow button so that you're informed of new episodes as they become available. Join us on OutBüro.com. That is OutBuro.com, where you belong and your voice matters. This is Dennis Velco. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.